Hello, how are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the winners and the losers from the week 1 of the Autumn Nations series. We had an awesome couple of days of rugby. Saturday in particular with all those fixtures was really enjoyable. We had England-Argentina as well on Sunday. And I've done a couple of videos on the channel specifically on the England game and on the France-Australia game because those are the matches that I was covering over the weekend. So I just thought this might give me an opportunity to talk about some of those other games as well and also get into the individual players. Who are the winners? Who are the losers from the opening weekend of the Autumn Nations series? If you're new here, please subscribe to the channel, like the video and drop a comment down below. Let me know what you made of the opening weekend of action, what players stood out, who you think now has a point to prove, all that sort of stuff and what I'll get into in the video as well. I always love to hear from you. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is I've made a couple of different notes, a few bits and bobs which have sprung to mind for me in terms of winners and losers, but I'm sure I'm going to miss stuff. So as I said in the intro, do leave a comment down below for what you think and if I miss anything in particular. I'm going to start with the losers, which might seem a little bit harsh, but Wales. Haven't had a chance to talk about Wales yet after their defeat to the All Blacks. And look, there's no shame in losing to the All Blacks. They're not going to be the first team to do that this autumn. They're not going to be the last team, that loses to them by such a big scoreline as well. But what I think it does do, it makes this weekend's game for Wales against Argentina really, really interesting, particularly because Argentina, one of our winners, coming off a victory at Twickenham, first victory at Twickenham, I think, since 2006, Michael Cheika's first victory over Eddie Jones. I'll get onto him in a minute. But in that Argentina victory, they were really physical with Buffelli in terms of a goal kicker now. They've got someone who's a pretty reliable goal kicker from inside the opposition half of the field. So those two things combined, they can make games difficult. And admittedly, I think the conditions played into their hands against England, but still credit to Argentina because they came out and they executed their game plan and they got that victory. But it makes this weekend against Wales really, really fascinating, I think, because Wales are coming off a heavy defeat. They need to respond. They need to rebound and get a victory themselves. That's not an easy fixture. Wales will go into it as the favourites, I would imagine, although actually I'm not 100% sure on that if the bookies will back me up, but I think you'd probably give Wales the edge just purely because they're at home. I would imagine they're going to have the Principality roof closed again, so any sort of conditions maybe isn't going to affect the game in the same way it did at Twickenham on Sunday. But this is an Argentina side who are massively physical. I was really impressed with their back row against England and just what they brought to the game physically, and they will kick their goals if you give them opportunities to. So those two things, I think life could be difficult for Wales and they need a victory. This kind of iteration of Wales under Wayne Pivac since the last World Cup when he came in after Warren Gatland. I mean, Welsh fans, let me know, but what's your view on him? Because we've seen them win a Six Nations, but it was a Six Nations behind closed doors where so many of their opponents had players sent off. Credit to them for getting that victory, but even so, it kind of had a little bit of an asterisk by it. But we've seen some of their best performances come in games where they've been expected to lose. You think about France in the Six Nations last year, they put in a really good performance. The second test away to South Africa when they beat South Africa in South Africa for the first time in the summer. South Africa made I think it was like 15 changes for that second test. But even so, Wales went there and did the job on them. Even against Scotland, I think it was in the Six Nations, was that their second game where everyone was expecting Scotland to kick on and get a victory, and Wales did a job on them at home. So Wales are capable of raising their game. I think it's really important that they do that this weekend. And the final thing on Wales as well, we're finally starting to hear rumours and rumblings of, is it time for that old guard, those players that have been such a staple of that team for so long, to move on, whether it's a Justin Tipuric, and Alan Wynne-Jones. I think they're missing Dan Biggar, even though he's one of the more experienced players, whether it's Anscombe or Priestland. We've seen Callum Sheedy have a go. He's not a part of this squad. They've never fully been able to, I think, get a viable option or viable alternative to Dan Biggar, who's out at the moment injured. So I think there are a lot of question marks for Wales, and I think the Argentina game is massive for them. Also in the losers category, I'm going to put Scotland, even though they won, and there's a part of an argument which is very fair, which Scotland fans can throw at me, which for Scotland, after losing to Australia the week before in a game they maybe felt they should have won, it was just about getting a victory. They've got the victory, they can now kick on. That's absolutely valid. The reason I've got them in the losers category is because I just didn't think it was very convincing. It wasn't a particularly entertaining game. I thought they were outplayed by Fiji for large parts of the game, particularly in that first half. Their discipline was really, really poor, but as always with Fiji and with the sides, sort of Samoa, Tonga, places like that, bags of talent, but they don't get much time together, and ultimately in 80 minutes of international rugby they tend to just fade away a little bit. And that's kind of, I thought, what happened at Murrayfield. Fiji at times were brilliant, really tested Scotland with ball in hand, but I just wanted to see more from Scotland, really. There is one though winner for me that comes out of this from Scotland, and that's Finn Russell, because he is back into that Scotland squad. Adam Hastings has dropped out. He started against Fiji. He's gone back to his club, Gloucester. He picked up a head injury, and I think he's also got a knee injury, which is being assessed as well. So shame for Adam Hastings. His form had been really good in the English Premiership, and I thought that actually if they weren't going to have Finn Russell, I know they had Hastings and Blair Kinghorn, I thought Hastings would have been a good option moving forward, but he drops out. So Finn Russell back in after a really good performance for Racing 92 on the weekend. Gregor Townsend originally didn't select him because he said it was down to form. Finn Russell has proven that he's in form at the moment. Now he gets a chance to come back into that side, and I think he could do with a performance internationally. We've seen Finn Russell be brilliant for Scotland before, but have we recently, in the last Six Nations this year for Scotland, have we seen him too much really do what he can? Admittedly, I don't think he toured, did he, in the summer, so we haven't seen loads of him, but I think he could do with a performance. But I'm putting Finn Russell in the winners category because he's back in that Scotland squad, and I think he will get an opportunity coming up against the All Blacks as well. What an opportunity that's going to be. Right, let's get on to some of the winners. I might get back onto the losers in just a moment, but in terms of the winners, we've got to mention Ireland. This Ireland side that we all know are the real deal. Any suggestion that they were going to hit this point in a World Cup cycle and fade away and do what they always do and not really perform when it comes to the World Cup, I just don't think that's going to happen. They're the real deal. I thought their victory against South Africa is a sign of where they've come as a side, because it wasn't a game that they dominated. It was a game that in the first half, at times, they were on the back foot. They weren't necessarily playing their best. They weren't dominating the game in the way that we have seen Ireland dominate games. Their attack wasn't necessarily clicking in the way that it can do, but they got the job done. And it gave them a really good building block to move forward. So that's why I'm excited by this Ireland result. Just a proper test match between them and South Africa. And I think it gives them the chance to kick on now. They're just the real deal. I'm so impressed with them. I can't wait to see what they do over the next sort of 10, 11 months or so. Also in the winners category, Michael Cheika, I've already mentioned him, but his first victory over Eddie Jones as a coach, his first victory over England, I think since 2015. He's been on the losing side for quite a long time there. He's got this Argentina side really playing well. That's good for world rugby. That is good for the international scene in world rugby. And actually, we've got a period at the moment where I think France and Ireland are maybe a cut above the rest, but it is still close. We see that with the Ireland result. We saw that with the France result, almost losing at home to Australia. But I think given what we've seen over the last 12 months, those two sides are perhaps better than everyone else. And then we've got South Africa, we've got New Zealand, we've got England, we've got Argentina now. We've got a whole load of other sides who on their day are capable of beating everyone else. So that's going to make the World Cup fascinating if it stays that way. Let's keep an eye on that one, because I think that could be really, really interesting when it comes to the World Cup, because predicting games is just going to be so difficult. I also wanted to give a shout out to Ardie Savea and Josh van der Fleer. I'm going to throw Gregory Aldrete into that as well, because Ardie Savea was immense against Wales. His carrying from a back row forward, is there anyone better in the world? I don't think there is. He is just so destructive. He's so explosive. He's such a point of difference for New Zealand if they can get him on the front foot, which they could against Wales. He absolutely terrorised the Welsh defence, and he was absolutely brilliant. And then Van der Fleer is another one who has been so consistent and so good over the last 12 months, was really good again against South Africa. And if we talk about World Player of the Year, which is going to be announced pretty soon, I think it normally happens just after the autumn, right? I think you've got those two guys. And then you've got to throw in Gregory Aldrete as well, who just doesn't stop working. is such a good player. For me, he's been the best player for France this year. I know Antoine Dupont is the one that often gets the plaudits. I think it was Dupont that won the Six Nations Player of the Year. Could be wrong there, but I think he did. But you have Gregory Aldrit, who was huge in Europe domestically. He's been massive for France. So him, Surveyor, Van der Fleer, I would suggest it's between those three for World Player of the Year. It's the back row forwards who should be dominating that category. So let me know in the comments down below which one of them is the World Player of the Year right now, in your opinion. Is there anyone else you would chuck in that mix? But for me, it's hard to look beyond those three players. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to get through. I guess a final thing, actually, another one in the loser category, England, and then specifically Ben Youngs. Really poor performance from the scrum half. We know what he's done for England, but I know there'll be plenty of people watching this, plenty of England fans that think it's time to move on from Ben Youngs. And when you have Jack Van Poortvliet coming off the bench, coming into the game, and 30 seconds in, bursting the game open, scoring a try, getting England back into it, having that injection of pace that we want to see from them. I've spoken about Rafi Quirk before on the channel. I think he's actually injured now, but I just wonder whether Ben Youngs' time should be up as England's scrum half. Don't know. Maybe I'm being harsh. Let me know what you think in the comments. Who should replace him? If they're fit, then Quirk and Jack Van Poortvliet for me would be the two scrum halves I would have in my matchday squad. But let me know in the comments down below. Got through a lot of different stuff there, so comment on any of it. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video. In particular, though, Surveyor, Van der Fleer, Aldrit, World Player of the Year. Who's getting your nomination? All right, I'll see you in the next one.